Hello and welcome to Learn Law with Hannah. So this is part 2 of the Lucy Letby trial, week 34. So if you haven't watched part 1, go back and watch that. They're only short videos, 5-6 minutes long, and then come back and watch part 2. So welcome back to those of you who've been following the trial. This week the defence Casey, so Letby's barrister, was giving his closing speech to the jury, and then next week the judge will sum up to the jury and then they will retire and consider their verdict. So what happened this week? Well, the Casey is basically saying, well, Letby is not a murderer. She has not killed these young children or attempted to. He said there's no evidence that she interfered with the bag with insulin. All nurses had access to it. It would have been obvious if she was trying to tamper with anything, and that the risk of being caught would be huge. So she would have been noticed if she was doing something. And he also mentioned about child F and L. A lot of the symptoms they had did not correspond to insulin overdoses, like there was no coma or anything like that. And he said, the barristers, they like metaphors, don't they? He said Russian dolls of improbability. So her guilt, the Russian dolls that you undo, and then there's another one there and then another one. He's just saying, no, you've got nothing. He said the sympathy card has no relevance, writing a sympathy card. When one of my students died, I wrote a sympathy card to his parents. I mean, I think it's what professional people do, or what anyone does. He also talked about child G, and he said there are a lot of signs that child G was developing an infection and that they had very poor treatment. That was his quote. And that Letby was not on duty when child G started projectile vomiting. He also talked about the unacceptable delays with child H, and that there were 3 chest drains on child H, which obviously is a lot, and that puts a huge stress on a baby to have a chest drain keep coming in and then out 3 times. And the doctor who gave evidence in court actually said, well, one of the possible causes of the cardiac arrest of child H could have been a drain that was actually too close to child H's heart. So that could have been one of the causes. And the prosecution made a lot of Letby talking about child A, saying she knew what she was looking for. And then she changed looking for to looking at. This was the issue of her standing at the doorway looking, and she said she could see child A looked pale because she knew what she was looking for, and then she said looking at. Now the Casey said, well, that is meaningless. When you speak, you sometimes change what you say. I've done that on this YouTube channel. I do it teaching every day. You say something and then you actually kind of change the words you're using, because maybe it doesn't make sense in your head, or you think grammatically it's better another way. So he said there's no difference between I know what I'm looking for, or I know what I'm looking at. So he said, the prosecution clutching at straws really. And he said any doctor who had suspicions would have been watching her like a hawk, and they would not have let her treat children. So he made quite a big thing about that as well. And Letby was crying. He urged the jury to find her not guilty. She was sobbing in court. And he basically said, look, she's a committed nurse. She was saving for a house. She's a senior nurse. She didn't just suddenly change in 2015. The prosecution have given no reason for her committing these alleged murders or attempted murders. And he said the consultants are not impartial. They have a vested interest. They want to protect themselves. So I thought it was a good closing speech by the defence. It's going to be interesting to see what the judge says, and then it's a waiting game. We have to wait for the jury. Obviously they have to go through every single child and every single charge. The other thing is, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking it's an all or nothing. Either they're going to come back and it's like completely not guilty of all those charges, or they're going to come back and say guilty of all the charges. But obviously what we mustn't forget is they could say guilty of child A's death or attempted death, or guilty of child P, but not guilty of B and C. So that's just something else to bear in mind. So it'd be interesting to know what you think after this week, and comment below. Comments are held for review, but if they are suitable, I will definitely publish them. So be good to hear from you.